What is going on, everybody? Yes, welcome back to the Dorks Next Door. I am your host, Andy York, and it has been a hot minute since we have done a podcast or anything like that. And it's the first time officially back as the Dorks Next Door after almost a year hiatus. So it's been a little less than a year since we've had our last episode, but we are officially back and we are chugging right along. We let the last 2 years of insanity get by us, and we are slowly starting to get back to normal and bringing things back up. And so the first thing we wanted to do is bring back this podcast. So welcome to the official relaunch, the official rebrand, I guess you could say, of the Dorks Next Door. Like I said, I am your host, Andy York, and as always, I could not do this alone, and I could not do it by myself. Once again, joining me, none other than Mr. Jason. Jason, how you doing, man?
Good. I'm so excited to be back on here. I'm so excited that both of our lives have kind of allowed for this again.
Yes, me too.
Really
It's been a hectic 2 years and different jobs and getting married and moving and everything else, and life has settled back down and able to kind of pick back up where we left off. So it's going to be a lot of fun to do that. But if this is your first time ever gracing the Dorks Next Door podcast, welcome. We appreciate you tuning in and listening to us. But we do things a little different here. We always like to talk all things about Marvel, Star Wars, DC, video games, basically anything else that we can think of that you guys want to talk about. I can promise you, probably like 70% of our content will be MCU related, just because that's the hot thing and the thing that we like to talk about the most. But we are going to be doing a Batman review when that movie comes out. We are going to be covering a couple other things. We are going to do a full review of the Book of Boba Fett whenever it finishes, which I think is in 3 weeks, 2 weeks, something like that. So we'll do a review of that as well as it comes, and once the season ends, we'll jump in and do that. But like I said, about 70% of our content is going to be MCU or Marvel related. But we are not MCU or Marvel shills. We do critique it very hard. Not just the Sony stuff as well. We critique the Disney stuff as well.
We say that, but
wait till we talk about the Eternals in a little bit. I'm sure we'll drag it through the mud a little. But true. we are very excited that you are here with us. And how we always like to start off this wonderful podcast is by talking about what we are into. And since we haven't really done this in like a year, Jason, you have free reign to talk about whatever you've been into the last year or recent or whatever. So awesome. Kind of inform the people, what have you been into here recently?
Yes. So very recently we had the trailer for Lego Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga, and I am so excited for this game. I really haven't been on much of a game kick lately. I've just had other things going on in my life. I haven't been playing a whole lot of games, but Lego Star Wars is my truest and oldest friend in gaming. The first game I think I ever played was Lego Star Wars 2 on the GameCube at my friend's house across the cul-de-sac from us. And he was just like the coolest guy ever because I didn't have a game system and I could not play Lego Star Wars 2. And then Lego Star Wars: The Complete Saga came out, and that had all 6 movies in it, and it had so many characters in it, and you could play that on the Wii, and that was back when the Wii was brand new. So I just thought that was the most amazing gaming experience of all time. And now I'm 23 and I'm married, and my life looks very different now. And here I am again, so excited for this new Lego Star Wars game with all 9 movies in it. And I know there's going to be a billion characters, and it looks like the gameplay has really been taken up like 8 notches from where like any Lego game has been before, because you have like, you can free aim your blaster, and you have like critical shots that you can hit people with that'll affect them differently. You have like dogfights in space and all this free roam throughout all these different worlds. I'm trying to remember. You have like melee attack combos, like free flow combos, like Arkham Asylum or something.
Really?
And like different force tricks and things like that. And you have character classes. So now like all of these characters are set into different classes, and you can upgrade the class as you go along. So they just dropped the gameplay trailer for that. It's coming out, I think, at the end of April.
Okay.
I haven't bought a new game in like a year, but I am absolutely getting that day one. No question. Lego Star Wars is so near and dear to my heart that that's what I had to mention.
That's the one that's probably going to be pre-ordered. Just ready, have it sitting waiting as soon as it goes live.
I've never pre-ordered a game before, but this might be it.
No, I'm very excited as well. That I remember playing. I think it was the one for the Wii that had all 6. I think that's the one I remember playing the most, and that one is just a blast. I think when I think of like Legos video games, I think of the Star Wars, and then I think of Indiana Jones for some reason. That was the other one I had for like the DS. That was the one that I played a whole lot. Was that
Me
one?
too.
And really enjoyed that one as well. But since we're on the video game side of things, I guess mine will be a video game that I purchased for Christmas or got for Christmas, and that is the Guardians of the Galaxy video game for the PlayStation 4. It's actually a lot of fun. I think last time we did a podcast or something, I had just gotten the Avengers video game, and I finally beat that. I finally mustered up enough to go through, and it got a lot better as I went through. And it got a lot more fun. So kudos to them. The Guardians of the Galaxy is just as fun. You can only play as Star-Lord, which is a little annoying. I'd kind of like to play as all of them, but Star-Lord is by far the most fun to play, just because you can fly around and shoot and everything else. So that one's a lot of fun, and you can control everyone else, but it's kind of like just calling out combos, and they go and attack other people and stuff like that. But it's a lot of fun. So I would definitely, if that is your style, go play it. It's a lot of fun. It's definitely one of the better Marvel video games. Other than, I still think the Spider-Man PS4 and the Miles Morales PlayStation game are top tier, amazing stuff. And so this is kind of like a couple notches below it, but it's still a great time and a lot of fun to go and play that. So
awesome. Yeah, I'm envious. I've never had a PlayStation, so
well, I still have the PlayStation 4. I can't find a PlayStation 5 anywhere. I think it's a myth. I really do at this point.
Yeah, it never actually came out.
I don't think it ever really existed, to be quite honest. All right, so we're going to dive into our main portion of the podcast. We're going to be diving into and reviewing all of the MCU in 2021. So we're going to be looking at the Disney Plus shows. We're going to be looking at the 3 movies that came out this year as well. 4 movies that came out. So we had 5 TV shows, 4 movies that came out this year. They were all over the place, and a lot of them, from some of them being some of the best MCU content we've ever had to some that may or may not rival Thor: The Dark World,
questionable,
Incredible Hulk, and things like that. So we're actually going to go through it in order how they came out, how they were released. Some of these we've actually covered already before, but we're going to kind of give our quick thoughts, because I believe we did a WandaVision and a Falcon and the Winter Soldier quick review after they came out, but that was almost a year ago, and I don't really remember what I had 2 weeks ago. So, we'll kind of dive into it and talk about things like that. So let's start off with WandaVision, which when we had last talked before this all came out, I think this was probably our most anticipated Disney Plus show at the time. Definitely top 2, top 3. Definitely one of our most anticipated MCU projects that had been announced. So that we were really, really excited for this. Overall, what did you think about WandaVision? Did it meet your expectations? Did it exceed it? Did half of it exceed your expectation and the other half kind of fell off? Or what did you think of WandaVision?
So the big reason that we were really excited for it, I remember, is because it looked really unique, and the concept looked really unique of them. At that point, we did know that they were going to be going up through the decades as the episodes went on. And I think that the way that they approached that concept alone, I think, puts it in a really top, high tier of Marvel content, because Marvel isn't known for taking great creative risks and those sorts of things. And not like this was some insanely bold creative risk for them to take, but it was a really cool concept. And I think the execution of that concept means that it's very strong. I do agree. I think the ending, I am agreeing to no one because nobody said anything, but I do agree to myself that the ending kind of fell off a bit. But yeah, I think that the heights that it reached were a lot better than the lows that it hit. And so I would still say that's one of the best things that came out last year. Honestly, I think it's excellent, especially revisiting it a little bit.
Yeah. No, I completely agree, and I think part of the reason why you said agree is because we've talked about this before, and
Yes.
and that my opinion is basically the same. Of I loved like 90% of this show. I
Yeah.
loved the look of everything. I love how different it felt. I love
Hmm.
the fact that we like went through um different histories of like the different history of TV shows, like different eras of
Hmm.
TV shows. That's what I'm looking for. But also like by episode 8, I think it was, or I forget how many episodes there were. I think there may have been 8. But like by
Hmm.
episode 7, we saw the reason why she had turned everything into the Hex into these sitcom shows is because that's all she watched growing up. So it was kind of what she reverted to. So I love that aspect of the show. I
Hmm.
loved how like deep it went into like the Marvel lore of the Scarlet Witch power, which I was not expecting that really at all. Like that
Yeah.
part of it was really cool. I was not the last thing I was expecting was to see the Darkhold in this show, and it blew my mind.
Yeah.
Seeing that at this part, I think the person that kind of stole the show by far was Catherine Hahn as Agatha Harkness. I think she was in a weird way the heart and soul of this TV show,
Hmm.
of this Disney Plus show. I absolutely loved it. I loved her performance in it as well. But I think the last episode really, I don't want to say it was a letdown, and I think part of it is because our expectations, theory wise, was so high that
Right.
it wasn't going to reach it. And I think part of that, like they caused when you have the Quicksilver from the Fox franchise show up, and he's not the Quicksilver, and he's just some actor. Like that's kind of not Mandalorian, a Mandarin levels of Iron Man 3 level of trolling in some ways. That's like, you could have found a different way around that. And I, just kind of those aspects of things. But I absolutely love the fact that we, got the Darkhold from this. We got the MCU version of Scarlet Witch, which is awesome. And I love the fact
Yeah.
that we got White Vision. Like White Vision was not on my list of expectations as well from the show.
Right. Yeah, I think that WandaVision is strongest the less that we know what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the more that the curtain was pulled back and the more that we saw from outside of her hex,
Yep.
the more the show kind of faltered a little bit. But
Mm-hmm.
again, I mean, it's just so excellent outside of that. And I know that the pandemic impacted a lot of what they originally wanted the ending to be.
Yeah.
And so I understand that aspect of it. And that doesn't, like mean that it's great for that reason, but still, I also really wonder how it would have turned out and what it would have looked like if the pandemic hadn't impacted
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we know, I mean, from a couple shows later on that we're going to talk about, they're not afraid to introduce some big villains in their Disney Plus shows, and I think,
Right.
Obviously the big baddie that we were expecting to see, Mephisto, did not show up, and I don't think that's
Hmm.
necessarily a bad thing. It took away, but I think the fact that it was just kind of never really addressed, I think, is part of the problem that people had. I do want to throw out we're kind of jumping in between episodes a little bit, but I want to throw out
Hmm.
this theory that I don't know if somebody else has said it, so I'm not going to credit anybody. I think it's my own theory, which I'm very happy with, and I'm more than likely going to be wrong. But we know we're having
Awesome.
the Miss Marvel Disney Plus show coming up,
Right.
and it's supposed to come out this year, which we'll talk about in a future episode very quickly. But we
Hmm.
we obviously know that she is from New Jersey,
Hmm.
and we know that WandaVision took place in New Jersey. And so
Mm.
I'm wondering, since this is how Monica Rambeau got her powers, I'm wondering if they're not going to find a way to have maybe Kamala Khan living in Westview during that time. The Hex happens. Maybe they move to a different part of New Jersey because of that. But because of the Hex, she ended up with her powers some way, somehow. I think that would be a really interesting way to kind of introduce her while connecting all these shows kind of together.
I think that's interesting because when of course, in the comics, Miss Marvel is an Inhuman,
Right.
and inherently, the word Inhuman in MCU canon probably brings the most baggage out of
Yeah.
any word that you
Yeah.
could say,
Absolutely.
almost. Um, just because of how that show turned out, which is actually on Disney Plus. I did not know that, but that means I am going to have to watch it
Oh, I'm so
someday
sorry.
once I finish all of Marvel canon. So I'll let you know how that goes. We can actually, I might live stream it so we can document my pain.
Yes, please do.
But also, the Inhumans were reasonably well done in Agents of Shield, especially
Mm-hmm.
like season 3. And Daisy
Yep.
Johnson is an Inhuman, and that's turned out really well. So I don't really see them going that route, but I do think that's an interesting connection.
Yeah, I think it's
For
just.
sure.
Go ahead.
I think that at this point they've really almost what I expect them to do with the Marvel TV canon stuff, which is what Inhumans and Agents of Shield fall into,
Mm-hmm.
is the old Marvel TV stuff. I expect them to cherry pick what they want from that, like Daredevil or like Jarvis showing up in Endgame.
Right.
I expect them to take the things that they like, but then probably not really address the canonicity of it for
Yeah.
quite a while. And so they
Yeah.
can just kind of be like, yeah, there were Inhumans at some point, but they don't really, they're on the moon, so who cares?
Yeah. Who cares? Who cares? I think,
Yeah.
and I think we're going to see that kind of. We've already seen that happen, which we'll talk about in a couple, two of them a little bit later on. But I think
Yeah.
we've already started to see that. I wouldn't be shocked if we started to see, Daisy Johnson start showing up.
That'd be
From
awesome.
Agents of Shield. I think she's probably the only one that they would pull from that show to bring into the MCU, which I'm totally fine with because she's one of the best she's one of the best characters of that show. So I think you could start to see that. I think you're right. I think they're going to start cherry picking from not just the TV shows, but from like the Fox franchise and from the X-Men and from all this different areas. We're going to see that. I think being
That's got to be one of our future episodes. I think is about how, which I'm sure we've had an episode on it before, but about how they are going to handle the X-Men after No Way Home, because No Way Home had a lot of things rattling around in my head about how they're going to handle that. So
and we need to do it before Doctor Strange, because I think our answers may be given. Some of our answers may be given in Doctor Strange. So I think we need to have the middle point and then after to debrief that.
Right.
So kind of going from WandaVision, and at the end of the episode, we're going to rank from number 9 to number 1, our best and worst. Our obviously number 9 being the least, and number 1 being our favorite from the year. So we're going to kind of do that at the end. So we're going to run through these kind of fairly quickly. We're going to spend some time in a lot of these, but
I do have to mention I noticed your WandaVision Funko Pops in the back.
I do. I have Wanda with the Darkhold, which is very nice. My beautiful wife got me these for Christmas. So, and then I have the White Vision as well that showed up.
I was trying to figure out who that was.
Yeah,
I couldn't see him very well, and I was like, "Oh, it's the Vision." That's why they would be standing together. That makes sense.
You know how Marvel Funko Pops are. It's like most of them stand up pretty well, but then you have like 2 or 3 that like refuse just to stand up. Well, this one I have the Loki from his show as well, and he refuses to stand up. So that's why he was kind of just laying back there somewhere. But yeah, I've got
very Loki of him.
Very Loki of him. So moving on from WandaVision, which came out in January, to a show that was kind of all over the place in a lot of ways, to Falcon and the Winter Soldier that came out in March of this year. Kind of what was your overall thoughts of the show? High moments, low moments, kind of how they took the character. Was the show really needed to get to the end point, or could we have just done this in a movie? Kind of what are your thoughts on all of that?
That last point is kind of interesting. I think that you're right. I think that we could have done a lot of this in a movie. Now, thinking over Falcon and the Winter Soldier, because, again, that's a show with very, very high peaks, but they just went in like some really strange directions to sort of pad out the rest of, I think it was 6 episodes. Is that right?
I think so.
Yeah. They went in some really weird directions to sort of pad out those 6 episodes, and that's what made the pacing feel so odd. So there were some really good ideas in that movie, and I am excited for what it set up. But it was just kind of a mess, and it was just kind of a mishmash of different ideas that I like, but they weren't put together necessarily very coherently.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think obviously the end point of the whole show was to get Falcon from Cap giving him the shield to him earning the shield and being the new Captain America, which that journey of things was really interesting, I think, throughout the show of kind of him going from not feeling worthy enough to hold the shield to by the end of it, like fully embracing it and going with it. I really enjoyed that aspect of it. I
Yes.
really also enjoyed the aspect of kind of seeing things from Bucky's perspective even more. And like how he befriended that old man, that he killed his son, and all of that stuff was really, like, I really enjoyed that. All the stuff with Isaiah Bradley was perfect, and stuff that
Yeah.
we like. I really really enjoyed that aspect. But yeah, you're right. It did feel like all over the place. The
Yeah.
U.S. agent went from being like a really cool character halfway through to, like, right after he decapitated the dude with the shield, he just started losing and just kind of went away for some of it. So that part was a
Right.
little annoying.
I felt that he was really being built to be the central villain, and I think it would have worked better that way because I think
Yeah,
he was a far more interesting character than our actual central villain.
yeah, and I think you could have found a way to maybe put them together somehow.
Yeah.
And like
Yeah.
maybe because I don't even the hand. I think not the hand. That's from Daredevil. What were they called? They were called
The Flag Smashers.
the Flag Smashers. That's correct. Yeah.
Mhm.
I think you could have put them together, U.S. Agent and the Flag Smashers together, to be this thing that they had to face together, like that Falcon and that Bucky had to face together. I think that would have been really interesting to have that aspect, other than just both of them beat him up, and then he just kind of turns into his own Captain America, and then becomes a good guy, but then at the end of the show is not a good guy anymore, and it was definitely all over the place.
I say that he would have made a better final villain for the show, but who would have made an even better final villain for the show, and who would have made more sense to team up with the Flag Smashers would have been Baron Zemo,
Yeah,
who like kind of showed up and then didn't really do anything, and then he got his mask and then he left. It
yeah,
was like, I don't know why he was like, why was he a part of the show? Like, it makes sense that he would be in the show, but
right.
he didn't like do anything really
Other than dance.
relevant other than dance.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. That was the only
Um,
decent part of that.
yeah, it was very strange. I think that if he would have continued down the way that they introduced him into being the central villain, then they could have, I don't know, made the whole villain plot feel a little more compelling. And not that, you need someone with like some crazy super villain name, some
Right,
like wacky, like purple mask or something to make that side plot interesting. But
right.
I feel like adding him into it, could have um, potentially made that turn out better.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I completely agree. I think he would have been more compelling as the central villain, or as the
Hmm.
big baddie afterwards. I think that would have been really interesting. One thing that was never really answered, and I don't know if it will be answered or when it will be answered, but the status of Sharon Carter in the MCU now, of what is her
Yeah.
role. I think I think a lot of it will be answered in Secret Invasion, because she's got to be a scroll at this point, especially
Mm.
after how things kind of ended with the power broker and everything. Apparently, she's the power broker, which I think if you would have completely shown that, that would have been fine. Like, that would have been a really interesting way to do that. But
Hmm.
the way they kind of revealed it was really odd and really weird.
Yeah, actually, the scroll idea, because I am like not thinking about scrolls at all, and it is kind of interesting who they are going to make into scrolls.
Yeah,
But I rewatched Winter Soldier the other day, and I was like, this is just not the same character that she was in. Uh, I guess I should designate which Winter Soldier I'm talking about. I watched the second Captain America movie the
yeah,
other day, and it's not the same character as Falcon and the Winter Soldier, or it
right.
doesn't feel that way at all. It feels like a super weird left field direction to take her character. And even if she is a scroll, that still stands because Falcon and the Winter Soldier is its own self-contained thing.
Yeah,
And to retroactively be like, oh, well, she was a scroll, that's why she was acting weird. It's like, well, no, because that's like, it's its own show, and so
right.
you know
Yeah, no,
we don't even know if that's true, but that makes a lot of sense.
yeah. I think that may be the direction that we're going into, but stay tuned for that, because in our
Yeah.
next episode, we are definitely talking about the Secret Invasion if it comes out next year. That's the plan right now, but
Hmm.
we'll talk about that here in a little bit. So,
I think it just got delayed
did it?
like 2 or 3 days ago.
Oh man, that stinks.
Yeah, I think
That
it and What If season 2 just got delayed.
Wow, that
the
really
next year.
stinks. That really
Yeah.
stinks. Well, let's go
Well, we
from
still got a lot of stuff coming out.
we do that we do.
Yeah.
So let's move on from the Falcon and the Winter Soldier to the third Disney Plus show. We got 3 Disney Plus shows at the beginning of the year before we got our first MCU movie. But the one that I was really excited for, but I was obviously not prepared for, and that was Loki. That came out in June. This
Yeah.
show to me was almost, if not perfect. Like it was absolutely fantastic from start to finish. Each and every week was captivating and interesting, and just so much fun to watch and go back and watch it and to experience. Tom Hiddleston obviously um, outperforms himself because he is, amazing at what he does, and he's obviously the best person to play Loki. But just every aspect of the show was amazing. What did you think about Loki? What kind of overall thoughts of the entire show and what it set up and who appeared in it and everything else?
Yeah, I fully agree. I think Loki is one of the best Marvel shows out of any Marvel show that has ever been. And the fact that it sets up for a season 2 is super exciting. And the fact that we know that there's going to be a season 2, I think Tom Hiddleston was fantastic. I think Owen Wilson was fantastic. I think that the role that it plays in the overarching MCU, with it being like the most important thing really to come out, except for maybe Spider-Man, but it's kind of a close contest, what the most important thing for the future to come out was, and to come out for the future was. And I am super excited by the things that it set up, but also the show, again, as a self-contained show, was excellent. And it was a lot of fun the whole way through. And I think that Loki as a character is such a fun lens to tell this kind of like multiversal story through.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. It was a great way to kind of introduce the concept of it before we actually really got to it, and kind of laid the groundwork and the seeds for everything. I completely agree with that. Obviously, with King the Conqueror kind of showing up in the show, completely blew my mind. I was not expecting that to happen at all, but that was a really cool moment to see him kind of show up, because it was kind of heading the same direction of WandaVision, of like it was pointing to King the Conqueror, but we were all thinking like, well, everything was pointing to Mephisto in WandaVision, and then he never showed up. So I don't know what's going to happen. And then the doors open up, and there he is, and now we're off to the races, and it was just absolutely amazing to see him kind of show up. And I'm really excited to see him. I think the next time we're supposed to see him is in Ant-Man 3, which is going to be a lot of fun to see him in that.
Hopefully. My love-hate relationship with the Ant-Man franchise continues. Yes, and this is another show that has a lot of mystery to it and a lot of feeling of what is going on and where does this puzzle piece fit. And I think that both WandaVision and Loki do that in a very interesting way. And so I'm excited for future Marvel shows or Disney Plus shows that we don't entirely know what's going on, because it's dealing with a new concept and a new setting and this new character's power or something like that, and how it kind of tells the story along the way. It's kind of the same way with The Mandalorian. The Mandalorian, we didn't know exactly where everything fit, and we had a lot of questions that needed to be answered, and that is another show that did that in an excellent way. So I think Loki did a super good job with that, and the questions that it had to answer, it answered in a very satisfying way. It was well paced. The music was unusually good for a Marvel property. I've been really impressed actually by just the scores for all the Disney Plus shows so far. Not that they're like incredible, but for Marvel, they're doing really good. So yeah, I mean, Loki, one of the best things from last year for sure.
Yep, absolutely. All right, now we move into our very first MCU movie of the year, one that fans have been anticipating for a hot minute, but we finally got it in July of 2021, and it was a little disappointing, I think is a great way to put it. And that is the Black Widow movie. there's a lot of things I liked about this movie. There's a lot
Hmm.
of ideas that I really enjoyed about this movie, but as a whole, I think I was a little underwhelmed, a little disappointed. It definitely was one of the biggest missteps with a villain, MCU villain that we've had in a while. With Taskmaster, I think Taskmaster is a villain that could be fantastic in the MCU, and they did not use, I guess, her in very much in this movie. I'm sure we're not done with the character. I think we'll see the character again, but as of right now, where it stands, it was a little underwhelming to see Taskmaster kind of used in that light. But what did you think about Black Widow? Did you enjoy it? Kind of some of the things that you enjoyed, some things that you would have liked to seen better. And go on from there.
So I've only seen Black Widow once, but as it stands, it actually falls in my bottom five of Marvel movies so far because I just really struggled with getting roped into any of the conflict or any of the drama or the heart of the movie. And for a Marvel movie, that is one of their greatest strengths and one of their biggest selling points is that they have a lot of heart to them, and the conflicts might be like really basic and easily understandable for children. But they make sense, and usually they're presented in a more compelling way. And so I just think that there's nothing that particularly stands out about Black Widow to say that it's like terrible or to say that it's like one of the worst Marvel movies that's ever been made. I don't think that. I just think it's a very, um, by the numbers Marvel film. And the main reason that it falls in my bottom five is that with Black Widow, they could have done so much better.
Yeah.
And I think that there were a lot of, and I don't want to like backseat drive on their creative process, even though that's literally why I'm here is to do that. But I think that there are a lot of kind of obvious decisions about where they took the plot and where they took the conflict that I would have made differently that
Right.
I feel like would have made it more compelling. And
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I don't want to unfairly judge it. I'm going to see it again at some point and maybe I'll like it more.
Yeah.
But it's just kind of it's weird, and it was a weird one to jump back in with. WandaVision was a weird one to jump back in with for a different reason,
Right.
but
Right.
Black Widow, it was like, yeah, we don't really feel like we're back to 100% yet.
No, and I completely agree. I think there was so much potential that they could have done
Yeah,
with it and from it that, it didn't really feel like it was anything really in some ways. And so I completely agree with that. I do love Yelena. I think Yelena is one of my new favorite MCU characters, so that's a big
right,
plus. It did set up for some things that we'll talk about a little bit later in Hawkeye and the Disney Plus show there as well, which was really cool.
right,
And I think one of the things I really enjoyed was what we got to see kind of the backstory of Natasha before like even getting involved in anything else with her family being spies and being here in America and everything like that. That aspect of it was really cool, but it kind of fell fell downhill very quickly from there. And didn't really deliver on a lot of things from it as well. So that's why it's kind of very disappointing of the potential that we could have had with this movie that we didn't get just for maybe the pandemic, or maybe just that's kind of the direction they just wanted to get this movie out of the way so that fans would stop asking for it, even though it was like 4 years too late. Things like that. I think that's part of the issue with it.
right.
So
Yeah, I think that's all spot on. I
yeah,
think even if it would have come out when it was supposed to come out in 2020, it still would have felt weird and it still would
yeah,
have felt out of place in the grand
yeah,
scheme of things.
yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's move on to the next Disney Plus show that we got in August, which is What If, the cartoon series, the one that we didn't really know what to expect or what we were going to get from this show. Um,
Hmm.
I really enjoyed the show. I think it was a lot of fun. I think it took a lot of different characters in a lot of different directions. And I honestly, going into it, I did not know what to expect from it, but I really, really enjoyed myself with it. Do you think kind of any of these? I mean, obviously, from the Doctor Strange trailer, we may have our first what if character coming to life or coming to the big screen. But do you think
Right.
that's actually the case, or do you think we'll ever see anything like that, or do you think this will kind of just be contained to its own thing, or do you think it'll be a part of the wider spectrum of the MCU.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what's happening. Because they said that What If would have implications on the greater canon, and now they're making a Marvel Zombies show, which I believe is probably animated too.
Yeah,
But at the very least, we can see that they want, and they're giving What If a season 2 itself. So at the very least, we can see that they want to take some of these ideas further. Um, I don't know. I think as a whole package, after sitting on it for a while, I still like it. I wish that they had, again, backseat driving with concepts and stuff like that. I wish that they had taken it in kind of crazier directions, because I
right.
think that a lot of the episodes were kind of shoe-ins or obvious picks.
Yeah,
And so, I would also say that a lot of the times, I know that it's a cartoon, of course, but with the extra effort that they took of getting like all of these actors back, almost all of them back to voice their roles, I wish that they would have felt a little bit more true to themselves
yeah,
in a way. Yes.
yeah,
So that was something that, just revisiting it, I was thinking about that. I was like, it just feels a little bit off, even though it's a cartoon, of course it's going
yeah.
to be completely different, but it is voiced by the same people. And so in a way it's still acted, um, the same way that it was before.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, then we get our next MCU movie, which is Shang-Chi and the Legends of the Ten Ring. One of the movies that I had no idea what to expect going into seeing
Hmm.
this movie, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I really enjoyed this movie. I think it's one of the better MCU origin films that we've
Yeah.
gotten. It's a lot of fun. The casting in this movie is amazing. The visual effects in this movie are some of the MCU's best visual effects that we've seen. Anytime you get to see two dragons basically fight on screen is always a massive plus, in my opinion.
Hmm.
And we got Trevor back, which was awesome as well. So like, there's a lot that this movie had writing on it. Did you enjoy the movie? What did you think about the movie? How would you compare it to some other? Because we have another. I mean, the next movie we can kind of put these two together, because we have Shang-Chi, which came out, and then we had the Eternals, which come out with, but which both of them are kind of origin stories setting things up. And while
Hmm.
Shang-Chi kind of delivered on, setting up who this character was or who this person was, I think the Eternals, failed some of this and made it very difficult to watch. Honestly, I think the Eternals would have done better with a Disney Plus show than with their own movie. Getting to spend time with these characters, in the world on like a 6-episode thing for a 6-episode hour show. I think that would have given us a better opportunity. But what do you think about these two movies? Things you liked about them, the things that you wish they would have done better or changed, or kind of backseat drive the creative with both of these movies as well.
Yes. Shang-Chi, I really enjoyed it. I think the biggest draw for it for me was the martial arts, and the way that they filmed the fighting. I think is a way is kind of leagues above different ways that they have filmed like close quarters combat before in their movies. And so I really enjoyed that aspect of it. I think the choreography of the fighting was excellent as well. Shang-Chi actually has a pretty good soundtrack too,
Yeah,
which I was really impressed by. Very happy with that. But yeah, no, it was really fun. I think it was an excellent origin story. I think that it was culturally unique, which was awesome. And I think that, again, just like in Black Panther, I think that the culture was represented very well.
hmm
Um, and it brings this new element to it that makes it just like stand out in its own way and make it like way more interesting.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
really like that.
Um, one thing I will say about the Eternals, though, I think part of its draw, or part of the things that I really enjoyed about it, was the visual effects of it.
Yeah.
The visual effects of it were really cool. The deviants looked really cool. The Celestials are the thing that is my favorite part of this entire movie, is getting to see a Celestial and like hear it talk and hear it interact and everything else. That whole aspect of everything was really cool to see that, and to you know see that come to life finally in the MCU that we've been kind of waiting on for a little bit, to see things like that.
Yes, yes. There were things that I really liked about the Eternals that were the things that I was going and hoping to like about the Eternals.
Yeah,
And so the way that their powers were represented was amazing. And it's some of the best ways that we've seen these powers put to screen. Makari's super speed, some of the best super speed we've ever seen.
Yes.
I would say. And then the way that Icarus fights, I think, is just like Man of Steel Superman, except for more interesting. In a sense. And so I think the visual effects of it were incredible, and the scale of it and the scale of the Celestials, and I think that aspect to it was really cool. Nothing else about it really was super cool, though.
Yeah. I completely agree.
The casting was amazing. I will say that. Great job with the casting, but I think that 10 is just too big of a number. It's literally just too big of a number for an ensemble cast like this. And bringing up Man of Steel, this movie feels like weirdly kind of like Man of Steel, in that it's like really like kind of contemplative and slow paced. But when you have 10 characters in an ensemble cast, and also it's a Marvel movie, then it's kind of difficult to make a contemplative, slow paced, self-serious sort of film in that way. And so it was kind of an odd mismatch. It's definitely one of the like kind of like The Incredible Hulk doesn't really feel like it's a Marvel movie. Eternals doesn't really feel like it's a Marvel movie. As well. And so it's very strange.
It is.
Not in the grand scheme of things, not that strange. In the grand scheme of things, not that different from what a Marvel movie is, but it's just after so many movies, we know kind of what to expect. And Eternals, I wish that it was different in a compelling way, but it's just kind of different in a way that makes it more boring.
Yeah.
So
no, I completely agree. I completely agree with that. All right, then we're going to talk about our last Disney Plus show of the year, a show that I was not expecting it to be as good as it actually was, and that is Hawkeye, that came out in November. I really enjoyed this show. I think this was a different look at Clint Barton post Snap world, which was really cool to see him kind of go through the trauma of Natasha sacrificing herself, and like old man Clint can't hear, and all of that aspect of the show was really, really cool. Kate Bishop in the show is amazing as well. She's going to be a lot of fun, especially being a part of the Young Avengers. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. But the main part of the show that blew everybody's mind was the fact that Kingpin is officially in the MCU. And not only Kingpin,
or not.
Well,
not anymore.
He better be back if that's how they.
Yeah, no, I'm just kidding. I'm sure
that would be a nightmare. But not just Kingpin, but Netflix, Daredevil, whatever you want to call him, Vincent D'Onofrio coming back to play Kingpin in the MCU. Definitely a different version of Kingpin than the Netflix show. But still a version that is really cool to see him kind of be back and play this character on the wide screen scheme and the wide world of the MCU. It was really cool to see that.
Yeah, I was very impressed by Hawkeye, which I'm very glad that I can say that because it's kind of an, for what a Marvel underdog can be, it's kind of a Marvel underdog show, because Hawkeye has historically always been the lamest Avengers character. In the grand scheme of public opinion. And so the fact that he gets a show that I think is really cool is really cool. And also, having read the Matt Fraction comic run that this is based on, I think adds a huge element to like understanding the creative process of what went into this. And I think that if we're thinking about this show as a big soup, that they're putting together, I think that the other things like Kingpin and stuff that they put into the soup were good additions. Unlike Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I think that this kind of highlights a lot of the issues with Falcon and the Winter Soldier, is that soup that they were making with the creative process was not coherent in a way that Hawkeye's was, and it didn't mesh as well as Hawkeye's did, and the pacing was not as good as Hawkeye's. And also, that end credit scene with the musical was absolutely amazing. I'm so glad that they did that. I think that's one of their best end credit scenes.
It reminded me a lot of cool. Of Captain America after Homecoming. Kind of doing so you've waited this whole entire time, and this is all you get. Like I love when they kind of do stuff like that, and I think
I like the meta references. Like
Yes,
no meta references in the movie, but meta references in the post-credit scene. That's fun.
amazing.
That's great.
Yeah, absolutely. I
Yeah.
completely agree. All right, so let's kind of finish off this review with the thing that
Alexa,
we.
stop. Okay, we're good. We're good. Crisis averted.
Crisis averted. Let's move on to talk about the big thing that I'm sure we both have a lot to talk about. That is the last movie in the MCU of the year, the biggest movie in the MCU of the year, the first actual MCU feeling movie of the year, and since the pandemic, since kind of Far From Home, is Spider-Man: No Way Home, the movie that kind of broke the Matrix in a lot of ways, the movie that did everything that we were not fully expecting them to do. So we're going to kind of run through this movie piece by piece. Obviously, it picks up right off of Spider-Man: Far From Home when Mysterio outs Peter Parker as Spider-Man. We literally cut to them back on the street with MJ and Peter Parker. Kind of going through things. All of a sudden, the crowd starts to turn on him. That one lady says that Spider-Man punched her when he just kind of moved her hand away. And then they go out, whatever. And then I love that, like, in the first 5 minutes of this movie, there's just Daredevil sitting at the kitchen table. Like, I love the fact that that quick in, they're like, yep, this is going to be one of those wild ride movies. Charlie Cox, Daredevil, officially in the MCU in Spider-Man: Far From Home, or No Way Home. All the home movies, they kind of start to run together a little bit.
Yeah.
But Charlie Cox, Daredevil in the MCU. Kevin Feige has been on record to say that he is going to appear in multiple movies and TV shows. I think obviously the next choice for him more than likely will be She-Hulk, which would be a lot of fun to see them two together.
It would be.
So kind of, did you expect to see Charlie Cox? Did you expect to see Daredevil in this movie? What did you think about his addition to the movie and kind of the impact that he will have on the greater MCU universe?
Yes, I kind of did expect him to show up just because, like, a lot of the time, well, really most of the time that fans really want something to happen and really want Marvel to do something, they do it just because they can. And
Right.
so I wasn't all too surprised. I was really, really happy though, because Daredevil is one of the best, as debating its canonicity or whatever, it's one of the best MCU canon anything that they've ever done. That show is amazing.
Yep.
And so I'm really, really glad that they're going to be able to pick up from that and still be able to use this character in exciting ways.
Yeah.
And have him cross over in ways that are cool instead of in ways that are boring and lame.
Yep. Absolutely. But he's not the only cameo or appearance in this movie. Obviously, we have a list of people that show up in this movie. Obviously, William Dafoe returning as Green Goblin, who completely stole the show in this movie. He is such a compelling villain, not just in the first Spider-Man movie, but like in this movie as well. He is still amazing as the Green Goblin.
If there actually is one thing that blows my mind about this movie, it is how well they did the Green Goblin.
Yep.
And how they actually transformed him into like the villain of this movie. Like, who would have thought before we got our first trailer that Green Goblin would be the villain of this movie and he would be this good?
Yeah.
I am astounded that they made it that compelling. And he is like central to the emotional through line of this movie.
Yeah.
Which is just incredible. Like, the way that they handled his character was absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
So
I'll
say that he was like the standout.
Yeah, absolutely.
Stand-up
and then we also had Alfred Molina coming back as Doc Ock, Dr. Octavius, which by the poster and by the trailer and everything else, they made it really they made you really believe that he was going to be the kind of central villain of this movie. So that was a great diversion of him kind of going back to where he ended in Spider-Man 2 to William Dafoe being the main villain of the movie. I think that was a really, really cool aspect of that as well. But the biggest thing that we got to talk about, the biggest thing that we got to bring up is the fact that we got to see all three live action Spider-Men, whatever you want to say, on the screen together for a good portion of the movie, not just like the last 5 minutes of the movie, but like for a good portion of the movie. They did a really great job of making Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man still be the same, but just older. That was like that aspect of it was really cool. They did better of doing a redeeming arc for Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man movie in this hour than his two movies combined together. Which is amazing that they did that. But then like they even though all these people still showed up, what I really love is that it still felt like an MCU Spider-Man story. It wasn't like he was just a part of it, kind of like Captain America, of like he was just a part of Civil War. It was really about all of them. Like this movie was solely still about our Peter Parker, and I really love that they were able to combine all these elements together while still making it, Tom Holland, Peter Parker, Spider-Man's main story. I really love that they did that.
Right. I kind of can't believe how perfectly they struck that balance. Of bringing in new characters, bringing back characters from other universes, multiple other universes, and also having the story of this trilogy be completed in a satisfying way with all of these characters having satisfying ways to end their arcs. And I cannot believe how perfect the balance was in this movie. Of all three of those things. Like they do a good job. Generally, they do a really good job. I think Thor Ragnarok is another example of kind of trying to reinvent things, but also have it be satisfying for Thor, like a conclusion for his trilogy. And Captain America Civil War, of course, is another great example. But this movie, I think, out of all three of those, struck the best balance. And I'm just like insanely impressed by it. Just like I said, Black Widow and Eternals are in my bottom 5. Spider-Man No Way Home is in my top 5 of Marvel movies ever. I was just amazed by it.
Well, speaking of rankings, how would you rank all the MCU products that we got in 2021, from 9 being your least favorite to number 1 being your favorite? How would you rank the 9 shows and movies that we got this year?
I've been waiting for this question for a long time. Man, okay, I got to remember all 9 of them. So
here, I can give you a rundown real quick.
Go at the top.
Okay.
Oh, that'd be awesome. Yes.
So you had WandaVision, you had Falcon and the Winter Soldier, you have Loki, Black Widow, What If, Shang-Chi, Eternals, Hawkeye, and then Spider-Man.
Okay, well, here I am opening up Notepad to make sure that I don't double anything really quickly. So So I'm going to put Spider-Man at number 1.
Okay.
Because I like I said, it's just perfectly balanced. It's a perfectly balanced movie. I am super impressed by it. It is an excellent ending to that trilogy. It's the best movie out of that trilogy. It's the best live action Spider-Man movie, in my opinion, which I know is a very bold claim. But I think it's true just because it ties everything together. And Doctor Strange is in this movie, and we didn't even mention him because there's so many things going on, but he's great as well. And the role that he plays in every like team up Marvel movie, I think is so cool. To where he's like Tony Stark with rules. He's like, we have to do things in this specific way. And literally everybody else is like, I don't want to do it that way. And he's like, well, you have to. It sucks for you. And he's the most powerful, so you can't argue
with him.
But his role in the movie was awesome as well. So I'm not going to spend that long on everyone. Okay. Number 2 would be Loki.
Okay.
Which is just an excellent show overall. I love the character of Sylvie, and I think that their dynamic between Loki and Sylvie, Marvel always does a good job with these 2-person dynamics at the center of a movie or at the center of a show or something like that. So I think their dynamic was really great. And his dynamic with Agent Mobius too was very cool as well. So what else do we have here?
We have WandaVision, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Black Widow, What If, Shang-Chi, Eternals, and Hawkeye.
Okay. At number 3, I'm actually probably going to go WandaVision. I think that WandaVision was very innovative. I think that honestly, if it hadn't been the first thing that had come out in a very long time, I think that it would have been received better overall. Not that it wasn't received well,
Right.
but with the fact that it was a little bit more experimental than what people are used to, it was a weird jumping off point to come back on after over a year of nothing. But going back to it, revisiting it, I'm just super impressed at how it handled the concept that it set out to handle.
Yeah.
And I'm really impressed by the mystery of it. Again, I love those shows that are like slowly pulling back the curtain or something like that. And both of these shows, Loki and WandaVision, have really cool sort of revelations to give us. And I don't know, the reveals of them are paced very well in the shows, even if WandaVision's is a little bit less compelling.
Yeah.
Okay. Next at number 3, probably.
Four.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. Number 4, I can count.
That private school
Hawkeye.
education we got.
Yeah. High quality. High quality. Yes. Number 4, I'm going to put Hawkeye. Very impressed by Hawkeye. It was kind of like what I expected if Hawkeye turned out well, was exactly what we got. And I'm just like, yes.
Yeah, that completely makes sense.
Turned out well, and that's exactly what I expected, and I am super happy to say that.
Yeah.
Because I think Hawkeye is awesome. He's one of my favorite Marvel heroes, and now Kate Bishop is one of my favorite Marvel heroes too. So
plus we didn't even talk about Lucky.
Right. Yeah, that was a great addition as well. Great addition. Number 5 going to be Shang-Chi. Excellent movie, excellent origin story, beautiful VFX, great music, amazing fight scenes. There you go. Post-credit scene was awesome. I'm very excited for that.
Yep.
Number 6, using my counting powers, would be What If. Gonna go What If at number 6. What If kind of turned out to be What If came out and it was okay.
Yeah.
I had really high expectations going into it, and so I think that that's part of the reason why I feel like it's just okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I might be being a little bit unfair to it, but I feel like with it being animated, they could have taken it in more interesting directions overall. And I guess that's just my main complaint. Everything else about it is great.
Mm-hmm.
The voice acting is great. The character of the Watcher is great. He's one of my favorite characters in all of comics, and so he was done very, very well. And then, well, definitely Falcon. Next, which was good, but like we talked about, it was messy.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of a mishmash of a bunch of random things that kind of turned out a lot better.
Yeah.
But the costume is sick. Very excited for that.
Yes, it is.
And the performances were all solid, and it set up some things that I'm really excited for. And I am very excited for Sam Wilson's Captain America movie or movies, because I think that his character can be done a lot more justice by something like that.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited to see where this character goes.
Absolutely.
From here on. And then this is tough. We have 2 left. And I don't know which one. Personally, honestly, this might not be right, and I might disagree with myself in 2 hours. But personally, I'm going to put Eternals over Black Widow just because I was very hyped for Eternals, and I think that it is a little more unique, or it's a lot more unique, actually. And a lot of the things that I was excited for going into Eternals still happened in Eternals. It's just they happened in a movie that's just weird and kind of just okay.
Yeah.
So there was good stuff about it, but on the whole, it's just kind of like, why?
Yeah.
There are a lot of things that I was just like, why? And then at the bottom, I would put Black Widow. Just overall, weird note to come back on. Kind of underwhelming. I wish it was better. She deserves a lot more, but I think that Black Widow has the most obvious, glaring flaws of which I can say, I had a better idea about that. So, and if I
Right.
can have a better idea about it,
You
then
can.
that's a problem.
Yeah. So
And
actually,
that's a
my list
problem.
and
So,
your list is very similar. Um,
yeah.
some actually are
Except
9
for
through 6.
Eternals is number one for you,
Yeah,
as I already
absolutely,
know. Yeah.
absolutely. 9 through 6 are actually the ones that kind of flip flop, and then the rest are the
Okay.
exact same. So number 9 actually have the Eternals.
Hmm.
I think I had a lot of expectations for this movie, and they did not really meet that much. The Celestials was amazing, and the post credit scene was really cool, and the VX and the visual effects and everything was awesome. But it felt very lackluster, and it felt, I don't know. It felt like there was still a lot that could have been done, and the first like hour and a half of the movie was very slow and boring. And then we got to the last 30 minutes. I was like, oh, that was it. Like we could have done a little bit more here. And so I think that's part of my issue with the Eternals. Number
Hmm.
8, I have Black Widow. I think the only thing that makes it a little better than the Eternals for me is I think the story was more structured. I don't think everything was perfect, obviously, but I think the story of Black Widow was more structured than the Eternals in some ways. Um, Plus, like I said, Yelena was awesome. I mean, Scarlett Johansson in this movie was really great as well. Like, I love her in this movie as well. I think she does a really great job. And it said like it connected some of the dots that we'd been missing from Civil War to Infinity War. So that part was kind of cool. But yeah, like you said, the glaring issues with this movie, it should have been a lot better. She deserved a lot better, and it definitely failed in my opinion. In some ways. Number 7, I actually have What If. I think just it was a lot of fun. It's a cool concept. I'm really excited for season 2. I just don't think it matched my level of it didn't reach to me, or it didn't get to me as much as these others did, especially the other Disney Plus shows. I don't think it had as much uh substance behind it, which it's not going to. It's a What If series, so like it's not really supposed to be like the main storyline, but it still felt kind of off to me, kind of like you said a little bit earlier. Number 6, Falcon and the Winter Soldier. The show is okay. The costume is really great, like you said. One of my favorite MCU costumes ever. Actually, I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
Baron Zemo, the 2 minutes he's in this show, some of my favorite minutes of the show because he's just absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
I love the dynamic of Bucky and Falcon. It's so much fun, but there's so much other potential that the show just left behind, that it did not go for. So I hope that in Captain America 4 or whatever they're going to call it, I hope we get more substance behind this. I hope we get more substance behind the character because he's on the verge of being like the face of the MCU if he's done the right way, and I think his movies could really help along with that more than the show did. Number 5, I have Shang-Chi, like you did, just for the same reasons. Great music, great casting, great post-credit scene. The fighting is some of the best fighting in all of the MCU. It's amazing to watch. I love the homage that it pays to like Jackie Chan movies and Bruce Lee movies and all of those. That aspect of it is really really cool as well. So I really enjoyed Shang-Chi. For Hawkeye, I mean, it can't have Kingpin in it and not be in my top 5. Like it was that reveal itself just made it amazing. But
Right.
Clint was amazing in it. Kate was amazing in it. I love the Tracksuit Mafia. I think they're now my favorite gang. If I could join a gang in the MCU, it would be the Tracksuit Mafia, just because I want to say bro 24/7. Um,
Yeah.
Number 3, WandaVision. I love just everything about this show, other than like the last 30 minutes of the show. I love everything about this show. It's amazing from top to bottom for the most part.
Yeah.
Paul Bettany's best performance as Vision, in my opinion. Um,
Hmm.
Elizabeth Olsen's best performance as Scarlet Witch. We got to spend so much time with a character that we need to spend time with, and it's like now I'm super excited to see her and everything else that she's going to be in the MCU. So that's going to be really cool to see that. Monica Rambeau, it was a great introduction to the adult character, like the adult version of the character. I'm excited to see where she goes from there. And yeah, I really enjoyed the show for about 95% of us. That's why it came in at number 3. Number 2, Loki, the best Disney Plus show this year. In my opinion, 100% perfect from the start of the show to the finish of the show. The TVA is a really cool concept that I hope we get more of. obviously Kang the Conqueror. I'm very excited to see him in the future of the MCU. Sylvie was awesome. Loki was awesome. Alligator Loki needs to be a constant thing in the MCU now. So that part was really cool as well. And then obviously number one, probably. Oh no, it is the best Spider-Man movie in my. It's the best live action Spider-Man movie. Probably the best Spider-Man movie ever so far. I think it's really great. I absolutely loved every second of this movie. There was not one thing I was disappointed in at all. In fact, I had super high expectations for it, and somehow it exceeded my expectations and was just perfect, absolutely perfect. So, best movie of the year, maybe the best MCU movie of all time. It's up there. It's up there.
Wow.
It's really good. I absolutely love this. And you know how much I love Far From Home. Far From Home is in my top 4 in the MCU, and I think this is better than Far From Home. So it's just, I've only seen it once as well, and if I love it this much, only seeing it once, I know that it's a really good movie. So that's kind of what I'm staying with. So, but I think everything about it is just absolutely perfect through and through.
I agree. It's great. It's really great. And it's awesome because for the first time in a little while, we have a great Disney holiday movie.
Yes.
And that's something that's been a trend that they've been trying to stick to for a little while, and for quite a while it's been Star Wars movies, and we all know how that ended out. So it's excellent to have Spider-Man be this trilogy ender. That's the big holiday movie that turned out perfect.
Amazing. So, absolutely amazing. Yeah. I completely agree. All right, anything else? We've kind of run a little long, but anything else that you want to mention about 2021 as a whole before we wrap it up and call it a podcast?
That's it for me. I mean, it's been a crazy year for sure.
But
it has taken 2021 for us to get back together and keep making content. So I'm very excited.
We're getting prepared for 2022, which I think might be even bigger than 2021, which join us in our next episode, because we're going to be previewing all of the stuff that's supposed to come out in 2022. Doesn't mean it's going to, because everything is being delayed. But we are going to kind of cover everything, give our thoughts and opinions and theories, which we love giving theories and trying to predict what might happen, and then coming back in and saying we were completely wrong, but they killed it anyway. So I that's going to be a lot of fun to dive in and to talk about that. So, but yeah, I think that's going to do it for this week's episode of the Dorks Next Door podcast. It's been so long, I forgot what the name of the podcast was for a second, but we are so glad that you guys are back. We are glad that we are back. It's going to be a lot of fun. We are going to try to post, not promising every week because life is busy, but we're going to post as much as we can. We're going to post for all of the big stuff. So Disney Plus shows, movies, all of that fun stuff. We will be here to cover and to talk about that. We'll be here scattered in and out throughout the weeks, building into it. We promise we will at least upload something once a month, maybe twice a month. A good month, you may get something every week, but we're not going to promise anything. But yeah, we are so glad to be back. We are ready to be back. We've talked about this for a while. We've been working on it for a while, and it seems like the perfect time and the right time to come back together. So welcome to the Dorks Next Door. We're so glad that you're here, and we hope that you enjoy going on this journey with us as we cover all things MCU and Star Wars and DC and whatever else we want to talk about. So, but for Jason, my name is Andy York. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and listening to us. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at Dorks Next Door. Make sure you subscribe, do all that fun stuff. And we will catch you guys in the next episode.